Hello everyone, I'm Sylvia from Fairlight Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you a couple of things that I like to do whenever I feel like I need to fight tarot boredom. But first and foremost, let's have a look at what I mean with tarot boredom, because there is no way that I will ever get actually bored of tarot. So what do I mean with that? Let's start from the beginning. I think that in the 30 odd years that I've been collecting tarot decks, I've actually evolved a lot. My taste has evolved a lot. Well, obviously the decks available in the market have changed so much, particularly I think in the last 10 years there's been a boom of artists that were not necessarily into tarot, but they tried to create a tarot deck, and there's been some really fantastic results out there. And I think that the fact that now we have tools like Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns that help, let's say, the tarot community be put in touch with these new emerging artists, or even existing artists that prefer to go the Kickstarter campaign way, for example, in order to raise enough money to create their tarot. So for tarot boredom, what is tarot boredom for me? I noticed that whilst my tarot practice has evolved throughout the years, one thing that has always been constant has been that every, I don't know, maybe 5-6 months, I find myself in a bit of a lull. I have a certain number of decks that I have on my wish list, and in such a way that every month I stick to a certain plan, let's say, to buy a certain number of decks. And it doesn't matter whether it's 10, 20 or 1 or 2. I always make sure that whatever is on my wish list correspond to something that I need, to something that I'm really looking forward to, in such a way that when I do get them, I've already built up the expectations, and I'm actually really looking forward to look at these decks, to work with these decks, to study these decks. But it does happen every now and then that I just find myself, just aimlessly browsing to the pages with the listings on Amazon, and finding new decks, and just, they're really affordable, some of them now. And so I noticed that sometimes I just click buy on a deck because I'm bored. And another thing that happens is most of the time when I do receive those decks, it's actually very rare that I'm looking forward to receiving them. So when I get them in the mail, I open them, I sometimes, I look at them, I look at the cards, but then they go straight to the shelf. And that to me is a bit of feeling restless. It's as if something that I'm looking for, I couldn't actually find. But I'm part of a really nice tarot community here in Australia, and I've heard from other members that they do go through the same issue every now and again. And it's, I think that when we get to that point, we risk falling out of love with tarot, because we don't use tarot for the specific reasons we've always used it, or we've always acquired tarot decks in our collection. We use it to satisfy some kind of an emptiness that we feel at that moment, for whatever reason. And it's the same way in which, for example, if you like buying clothes, sometimes you just keep on buying clothes even more than what you actually need. I used to be that person. I used to buy a lot of clothes because I thought somehow that, I would have found some kind of motivation by buying them, it doesn't make sense. Even when I put it this way, I realize now I should have been able to see through that, you'd think. But it's not easy, because we also live in a society that is actually bombarding us with alternatives, and also with all these kind of choices. And it's very difficult to resist sometimes. If everyone is wearing that particular top, I also want that particular top. There's no two ways around that. And I think that, you know, we're all going through some phases of tarot FOMO when everyone is talking about a particular deck and we need to get it. I think that there's ways to overcome that, or at least I'm going to show you today some of the ways that work for me. But let's have a look. So the first thing I do is build a tarot mandala. And what is a tarot mandala? There's a few ways to do that. Well, you all know what a mandala is. You all know what tarot is. A tarot mandala is exactly what the word suggests. So is a mandala built out of a number of cards from a tarot deck. In this case, I've chosen the Fairlight's Tarot. And the reason why I chose that is because I really love the colors in this deck, and also because it's one of those older kind of Los Carabel decks that came with really ugly borders, and I trimmed them off. And this way it has become kind of a smaller kind of size, not a mini, but not a standard size either. And if you're familiar with mandalas, you'll remember that they are quite large. They can be quite large. So that's the reason why I chosen this deck, because I want to show you how I build a tarot mandala with this deck, and I am going to need a lot of room. So if I had chosen one of the standard tarot size, I would have needed a whole table. But then again, I don't have a lens wide enough to cover that. So let's have a look and let's try out. There's different ways to do that. One that I came across first was Rachel Pollack's way. It's towards the end of her book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom. In any case, what I'll do, I'll put the link to the book in the description box below. But there's also someone else, I think Benebell, has been going through this practice. And it's really well structured. So I'll put the website, I'll put her website in the description box below as well. Because if you want to do something very, very structured, then Benebell's way is definitely the way to go. Rachel's way is more centered on some kind of putting a positive vibe, giving a positive spin to a reading that has left us a bit concerned, let's say. So the first thing that I do is I look through the deck that I'm going to use, and I only pick positive cards. Okay, so these are the positive cards from the tarot deck that I've chosen. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to shuffle it, and then, well, you can use two ways, even by Rachel's guidelines. Basically, when you had a reading you're not entirely happy with, what you can do is you put the reading, say it's a 3-card pull, for example, you put it in the center, something like this, the 3-card, and then you start the mandala radiating from the reading. But because I don't have much room, as a matter of fact, let me make some more. Because I don't have much room, I'm just going to start with the tarot mandala itself. So I choose a card that stays at the center. In this case, it's the Ace of Cups. Really beautiful. And then I generally put some music in the background, some Buddhist music, for example, or some Gregorian chanting, something that, you know, hangpan music that I really love. One of my favorite artists is Alex Dove. I cannot put the music in the background now because of copyright issues, but you know what your favorite music is. So then we just start. At first, I just put 6 cards down. I make sure to do it in such a way that I use as little room as possible. It's not an easy thing to do, even with the smaller kind of deck, as you can see, because obviously tarot cards, you know, they want to occupy their own room, obviously. So you get the gist, and basically then I proceed and I go on and I'm filling the empty spaces. And now I shouldn't be talking, because this is an exercise that should be done with a bit of quiet, or as I said before, with music in the background. And it is conducive of meditation. I think Rachel does that too for meditation. And then I just go on. And what this does is, to me, it gives me the possibility to reflect on the reading, for example, that I did, and why did I find this so concerning. These are all positive cards, so while I look at the cards, I think of their meanings. I welcome them in my readings. And generally speaking, I just invite calmness and consciousness and awareness into my practice in such a way that I feel a bit protected, where before I was feeling vulnerable. So this is a really nice practice. As you can see, it can become very colorful. It is very crowded. Ideally, I always try to use as much room as possible, because I want some room to be in between the cards so that I can actually look at them properly once they're all laid down. But you know, for filming purposes, this is what I could do today. It's something that has helped me a lot, and especially when I start from a 3 cards pool that was really confronting to me, the fact that I surround this with such positive energy, it really helps me understand that there's always something I can do, there's always something that I can achieve, even by doing a simple gesture, just as building up a mandala. And then, you know, if you're familiar with the practice of mandala, these mandalas are amazing, beautiful, and in order to signify the impermanence of things, even if it's something so beautiful that it deserves to live forever, the practice is that at the end of it, when it's fulfilled its purpose, you need to destroy it. So you go with your hands and you just pick up all of the cards. And this is very symbolic of the fact that everything coexists. Everything coexists in time and in space. So I hope that you like this practice. This is what I do whenever there's a reading that worries me a little bit and I want to feel better about it. So I build a tarot mandala. Another thing that I do that makes me fall in love with my tarot practice again, whenever I feel like I'm being a bit drifting, is keeping a journal of not all of my readings, because I do a lot of readings, and I, generally speaking, do not use the same journal for myself as I use for clients' readings. Especially now that I'm actually filming clients' readings, I have the video, so I don't necessarily keep a journal of the readings, but for myself I always do. And since there's a lot of personal stuff in here, what I'm just going to show you is something very quick. I usually take a photo of the spread that I'm reading, and then I just print it out, and then I journal about it. And it's something that I really like to do, because it's something that gives me the possibility to do a lot of introspection on my practice itself. I really like, for example, I really love it when I buy, as you can see here, for example, when I buy some either tarot decks or crystals, and I receive something from the seller, I always put it in my journal. And I really love to write. I'm a writer, and therefore writing about tarot is something that, you know, it's like it's even deeper than what I would do if I were just writing a novel, for example, because whenever I write about my tarot spreads, the tarot readings that I do for myself, there's a lot of introspection, as well. And I'm sure you all keep a journal. In my case, it has to be really big because my handwriting is big, always for the usual issues that I have in my fingers. And I really like these. This is from, oh dear, I think it's from Paper Blanks, yes. So I buy these ones generally on Amazon. If you like these notebooks, I'll definitely put the link in the description box below. They're really beautiful, really high quality, and I really enjoy collecting them too, because then, you know, it's like having books, as you can see by the cover. The cover is even embossed, so it has a really nice tactile feel to it. So keeping a tarot journal is something that really helps me fight tarot boredom. Another thing that helps me when I have that feeling of restlessness and I start buying a lot of tarot decks without actually being convinced that I want them, without feeling like I'm going to use them, is I keep a wish list month by month. And this is my planner, by the way. It's a really fun one. As you can see, I had to cover the word here, but it's a really cool planner, and I really love the prompts that it's got inside. So for example, for the month of April, this is only the beginning of my wish list. And I've got The Last Immortals, The Cecil Journey, Tarot of Trees, Squid Game Marcel, Oracle Danka, the expansion pack. Now, what I do is not only I keep a wish list, and then eventually during the month I have a look at whether it's, you know, the tarot that are on my wish list are available, for example. But one thing that I really like to do is to go through the list and, you know, tell myself and ask myself the reason why I want this particular tarot deck. So The Last Immortals, I don't know if you heard, but it's become available again. It used to be out of print. It's an absolutely gorgeous tarot deck, and this to me has, you know, it's on pre-order now on the website, and I have no doubts when it comes to buying this one. But this one, for example, the Cecil Journey Oracle is it's very beautiful. I've seen it in a few channels and on Instagram, and it's really piqued my curiosity, but I'm not sure 100% that I don't have another oracle deck that could function in the same way. Then I look at the Tarot Trees, for example. I really like the artwork and the colors. Colors are very important for me because I'm a very visual person, and so on and so forth. You see what I do. So basically, if I decide that The Last Immortals is a must buy, then in this case, I will just put a tick like that. If I'm not too sure about it, so the Cecil Journey, I just put like a small wave, and so on. It's a very, I think that sticking to it, it's also requiring kind of a commitment to me. It's like saying, you have been through this list, you have decided that, for example, this tarot deck will be very welcome in my collection. I will look forward to it when it comes. I will, you know, I will use it. Or it can also be a tarot that I want in my collection just for collection purposes. But what I mean is that it needs to be wanted. It needs to be desired. If it's something that I just buy out of boredom, out of restlessness, I already know that it's not going to be, unless it's a very lucky coincidence, but it's very rare that that happens. So when it comes to the Squid Game Marcel, for example, I know that I will want this tarot deck because, well, first of all, it's also very affordable. It's a Marseille. I only have 3 or 4 Marcel decks, and they all 4 of them are out of print, and they're becoming, so I'm starting to be a bit nervous when I'm using them. So I need a mass market Marseille that I have absolutely no problems in using. And this one is really cute. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend having a look. It's so cute. So I make a list, and then I check item by item if it makes me feel happy, just the idea of getting that tarot deck. So something else that I really like doing whenever I feel that kind of restlessness and unsatisfaction is studying a new system. And or you know, if I want to perhaps do something additional to my practice in a system that I already know. This one is a new system to me. This deck is called the Book of Destiny. It's a 33 cards with an instruction booklet. It has been published by Grimaud in France, and I think it's bilingual, French and English. I bought this deck a few years ago. I think it's still in print though. What I really like about this deck is that I've never seen this system before. So let's have a look. The methods shown in this book can be rated among the most simple as well as the most efficacious. They closely follow the teachings bequeathed by the masters in the art of cartomancy, and consequently the knowledge imparted is easily accessible to the beginner. Well, thank you, because in this kind of system I'm a complete beginner. The title of the Book of Destiny is in itself a study, as it enables one to have a clear vision within the human limits of space and time concerning destiny. So it tells me already that it's focusing on divination. By the way, this is from 1994, but I really don't think, so the initial publication, the original, has been published in 1994, but I've had it for probably not more than 10 years, I rather say. And I never had time to actually study, but I decided that for the month of April, I'm actually going to try and have a look. So what it says is the association of traditional playing cards with the images belonging to the 19th century is certainly original, but the astonishing factor consists in the precision of information and the unveiling of secrets that are provided in drawing those cards. And then it goes on explaining how this deck differs from different other divination systems. So when he talks about divination, all card games invented for the purpose of divination have their respective worth. The Book of Destiny also possesses its own particular distinction in being able to tell the future by a different process. And you've got two choices: the game of patience, agreements, harmony, or the methods of drawing the cards from 7 to 7, the semicircle. By such means, you will find this small booklet efficacious and complete. And then he talks about the game of patience, and you know, it tells you how to pull the cards. It tells you different meanings for the cards when they come out. It talks about harmony, combinations, and points and results. It gives you a sample reading. It talks about ways on how to draw from 7 to 7. That's a different one from the patience, the game of patience. So it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world for me, because it's very, very interesting. And then it also goes a bit over the meaning of the cards, and you'll see that it's completely different from what we're used to in the RWS. So for example, for the suit of spades, we got the ace with love. So right way up, proposals, meetings, sexual relations; reverse, betrayal, anger, serious quarrels. And then it goes through the king, the queen, the jack, the 10. So there's no knight. For example, for the 10 of swords, which for us is incredibly powerful as a card, we've got sentimental troubles, tears, breakup. So it looks like spades is what we identify with the suit of cups, so related to the matter of the heart. Which is, you know, absolutely different from what we're used to. Such an interesting new system, and it's making me happy just by looking at it, because I know that I'm going to have so much material to study. I'm going to have so much fun going through the deck and trying it out. It's really beautiful, by the way. I really like this kind of style. It reminds me a lot of the J.J. Swiss tarot. As you can see, there are keywords, or rather titles, I would say, at the bottom, and it reminds this way because of the association of an image, the keyword, and the traditional playing cards. It would remind me of the Lenormand system, but it's not. Something that I feel like it goes, you know, it overlaps a couple of different systems. And that's why I'm so very excited about it. I love this card. So the gossip card. It makes me really excited because it's something new, and it's something that brings back that kind of passion that whenever I feel restless, I have definitely lost in my tarot practice. So whenever I feel lost, sometimes I definitely look into a system that I don't know and I want to study, or a system that I already know but I want to deepen my knowledge about it. Something else that I really love doing whenever I feel a bit restless about my tarot practice is to do a deep dive reading and studying of a specific deck's guidebook. So in this case, for example, the Dark Goddess Tarot by Ellen Lorenzi Prince. This guidebook is the guidebook from the mass market edition. Now, I know what everyone says, the mass market edition is terrible. The cards themselves, it's really low quality. Most of the time, because of the gilding sticking together, even my deck is actually damaged because I had to separate the cards, and unfortunately, many of them got damaged. If you can put your hands on the original indie edition of this deck, I highly recommend it because it's actually bigger on top of everything. The titles don't go on top of the figures of the characters in the cards, and it's a really beautiful quality. What I do appreciate is the fact that the mass market edition is the only edition that does have the guidebook, and it's a very interesting guidebook. So just to give you an idea, the indie edition looks exactly like this, whereas the mass market edition, you will have a banner here, a golden banner with the title, which is, you know, sometimes it just really cuts into the images, which is, it's just not, I don't know what they were thinking when they were planning that deck. So what I really like about this book is that you can definitely read it as, you know, as a book. Each and every card represents a goddess, and you can read the story of the goddess, and it's very beautiful. And it's not necessarily, I think little of this is actually related to the way in which you read tarot. This part here does tell you what it could mean, or what it suggests what you could do when this particular goddess comes to you during your readings. As you can imagine, this tarot deck is, I think that almost all of us in the community use it more for personal practice rather than divination or any kind of other type of readings. So Persephone, for example, for liberation, it's number 20 in the major arcana. It's actually judgment, but it makes sense that it's been renamed liberation because Persephone is the Greek goddess of resurrection. And so it tells you about Persephone, the story, the myth behind it. And, you know, as I said at the bottom, when Persephone appears, the situation is charged with meaning and potential. You have the opportunity to break a negative cycle, to break through to another level of awareness, and an opportunity to exercise that awareness for a great good. I really like this book. I'm always interested in reading about all of these goddesses. As you can imagine, there's 78 of them. So it really looks at many different traditions, many different cultures from many different countries, and that's what's mostly interesting for me. I am somewhat familiar with all of them now because I have been reading this book several times. But when I started reading it the first time, I just barely knew. For example, I knew what a banshee was or is. I knew what tradition this is coming from, the Irish tradition, but I didn't know everything that I could find in this description. So I think that this book is incredibly interesting. And reading a guidebook related to a tarot deck can actually be done on its own. There's a lot of tarot decks that have fantastic guidebooks. I'm thinking the Star Tarot, for example, Our Tarot, for example. And you don't necessarily have to use the deck. Of course, it helps. But I think that these kind of readings really give me back some of the passion that I may have lost for my tarot practice. Another thing that I do to fight a tarot boredom is to attempt a few pairings between a tarot deck and an oracle deck. And it's something that I don't necessarily do for readings. Most of the time, pairings for me are a way to wrap up a reading or give out a follow-up message, or, depending on the oracle especially, I do use these two in combination when I do for very specific self-practice, like for example in my series Tarot in the Times Off, I do use a combination of tarot and oracle decks quite often. But sometimes I really do believe that when the aesthetics match, it gives you a really pleasant feeling of accomplishment. And in this case, I'm just going to show you a very recent one. This is a new oracle deck that has been delivered a couple of days ago, and I really love it. It's the Wisdom of Hafiz, and I think that it pairs really well with the Guidebook tarot. Sometimes I pair two decks together just for the good feeling that I get whenever I get to pair something aesthetically pleasing together. When I do that, I don't necessarily listen to the messages of the cards. I just focus on the color palette, I focus on the art, I focus on the music of it. It's just a beautiful opportunity to just let something go. Let your mind wander. It's also a good prompt for meditation. Sometimes I may focus on the message that comes from the oracle deck alone. We don't necessarily try to listen to the conversation that these two decks have with each other, but simply watching them do their thing. And I'm quite content and happy to take a step back and look at that beautiful interaction, as I said, between the colors, between the artwork. And I think that these two really work together in that way. I really like the Wisdom of Hafiz oracle. The messages are absolutely beautiful. However, I think that when I pair with the Guidebook, because of the fact that the Guidebook is very busy, it's a very busy kind of tarot deck art style, it feels like it's just working really well as some kind of to create an atmosphere for the oracle deck. I hope I make sense. So this is something that I generally do whenever I just don't necessarily want to apply any kind of reading skills, but I just let myself be, a spectator and looking at how beautiful two decks are together. And it's something that I really recommend if you haven't tried yet, pairing up oracle and tarot decks. It's actually a very beautiful practice. It's something that is very satisfying. It's something new because you can always find new pairings. You can also find ways in which pairings differ depending on thematics, for example, or depending on how you use the decks. It's a very soothing and calming exercise. So this is the Wisdom of Hafiz oracle, and this is the Guidebook tarot. Last but not least, something that I really like doing is whenever I do receive a new tarot, this is the Viceversa Tarot, and it's, by the way, the edition that comes with the Total Tarot magazine. As you can see, this is part 12 and 13. I've said this before because I've had a few people reaching out and expressing, concerns about this publication. Total Tarot magazine is completely legitimate. It has been licensed by Los Carabeo itself to reproduce these decks. The quality is a bit of a hit and miss, I have to be honest with you, after having received, I think, something like 10 different tarot decks. I don't know why, but yeah, the quality feels a bit off sometimes, which is a bit of a pity. One thing that I do whenever I receive a new tarot deck, I go through the cards and I just look at them and I let myself focus on the artwork most most of all. This is a very special deck. As you can see, it's a Viceversa Tarot. It's got illustrated fronts and backs, and it gives you the traditional, let's say, image at the front, and on the back it gives you an idea of what the scene, let's say the tableau that we are looking at, could have looked like from the back if someone had stood behind the character and taken a photo or a snapshot in time of what the scene would have looked like. And it's very, very interesting. So something that I really appreciate doing with this tarot deck is finding the cards that I like the most, and you know, and having a look at them and deciding why I like them. For example, this strength card to me it was a bit of a shock, because as you can see, the front, you got the usual image of you know, a woman opening the mouth, forcing open the mouth of a lion, which is the traditional depiction of the strength card. However, when you turn it around, you will see that there's the devil in front of them. And so this gives you a bit of an introspection on a different part, let's say a different meaning of the card that not everyone thinks about. Now, there is, the strength card does also present that element of imminent danger that not everyone is familiar with the strength card. I really like the fact though that because this tarot is presenting the scene from the back, it becomes quite clear. And this is the same for many other cards. Some cards don't have anything shocking, as you can see, but they're really still very interesting. Sometimes though, it's not necessarily the what the scene will look like from the back. It's a completely different scene, as you can see in this case. It's very interesting to have a look at the book, the guidebook. This is something that I do, and I basically I have a thorough look through the cards on the deck, and what I do as well is I make a kind of a selection. So if there's a card that I really like, for example, in that case I would just set it aside. For example, I really love this Ten of Cups because it's got the traditional depiction at the front, but at the back it shows you that there's also something that goes beyond the moment in time, and I just set this aside. And I do the same with other cards. Whenever I find a card that I really appreciate, I just set it aside. And at the end, when I've been through the whole deck, so this one is another one that I really like. So this one shows you the Five of Pentacles, and that's the beggars outside the church, wounded, left out in the cold because there's a snow here. And it's a very traditional refiguration of that card. However, if you turn it, you will see that the person that is still inside, whether it's a church or a building of any kind, doesn't matter, but this person is actually desperate. I really love this card because it shows you that yes, this person has been exiled, they've been left aside in the cold, and sometimes I relate to this person because I do feel like this sometimes. But this card also brings with it this kind of meaning, the fact that there has been a loss by the other person as well. So there's the whole community that has cast you aside, but the whole community has lost something or someone as well. And I really like you know, being given the possibility to look into this particular interpretation of the card. And so I'm very grateful to this deck in specific for giving me the opportunity to remind myself of some meaning of the cards that are not necessarily well known, or that I necessarily don't remember. And so when I get to the end of the deck, I will have, I don't know, my favorite cards will be anything from 1, in that case it's a very poor choice of a deck if there's only one card that I like, to perhaps, I don't know, 10, and or even more. Some of the decks that I like the most, I generally speaking like all of the cards. And when I'm done, so let's see this one. So this is another really beautiful interpretation of the card. So we've got the Ten of Swords, in which we are kind of deceived by the front of the card, because it shows you the traditional depiction of the person that has been stabbed by 10 swords. However, when you turn it, you'll see that this is just the armor that has been pierced by the swords. The person has actually come out completely unharmed. And it's a fact that, you know, sometimes we also forget about the meaning of this card. It's the rock bottom. Of course, this person has lost his armor, probably also their weapon, and therefore has lost the war. However, they do have, you know, they are intact, which means that they can start again. And I really like this interpretation of the Ten of Swords. It's not always, yes, it is rock bottom, but from rock bottom you can actually go back up. So whenever I'm done looking at all of the cards, I pick back the cards that I really like. I go through them again. Sometimes I, you know, I even use them in a spread, not necessarily for a reading, but just to see them together, how they look together. And it's something that I do, you know, in order to fight that kind of restlessness that sometimes I feel whenever I receive a deck and I'm not really sure whether I want to keep it or use it or not. So this was the Viceversa Tarot. So today I've shown you all the ways in which I try to reignite that flame of passion that I feel towards my tarot practice. It would be so cool if you guys could share in the comments below what you think about these things, and if you agree or not, if you have different ways to find tarot boredom, or even if you don't agree, or even if you don't feel tarot boredom ever, please let me know how you do it, because sometimes it does happen to me. And I would love to hear what you think. So thank you so much for staying with me till the end of this video. Please like and subscribe. See you next time. Have a great day.